I'm asked all the time what I do to protect my investments. What are the strategies I implement to combat against all the things I talk about on a daily basis and over 2,000 plus videos in circulation at AMTV? The economy, 0% interest rates, this artificial manipulation at the Federal Reserve, the bailouts, the consequences of all the stimulus and artificial manipulation. What kind of strategy do I have in place for my family? What am I doing to protect our future? Well, one of the things I do is I invest in precious metals. I take 10% of everything I earn and I buy gold and I buy silver. And the company I trust that I do business with is Goldline. These are things you should already be doing, but if you're not, you need to pick up the phone right now. You need to click that link below. Visit Goldline. Download a free investor kit. Tell them Christopher Green of AMTV sent you. Act now. Get your family's financial future in order today. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. It is Wednesday, September 23rd, 2015. And in today's video, we'll ask 11 critical questions about September 11th that are still left unanswered to this very day. In no way is this video meant to diminish the almost 3,000 lives lost, but to question the official narrative coming from our government and asking these specific 11 questions that again are still left unanswered. Question number 1, how did Building 7 collapse? How did an independent structure that wasn't hit by a plane collapse? We saw this live on TV. There was gross media coverage of this. In fact, before the government appeared to know anything was going on in New York City, the mainstream media was on top of it.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. And it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened.
Notice there wasn't a single fighter jet in the sky. But Building 7 collapses. Somehow, even though a plane didn't hit it, steel melts at thousands and thousands of degrees and collapses in a perfect demolition like what we see when they place bombs and explosives on some of this footage, let's say with an old Las Vegas building. Again, how did Building 7 collapse? Question number 2, why wasn't the second plane shot down? You know, it makes a lot of sense if America was caught with their pants down and let's say NORAD only had a few minutes to respond, that a first plane, which happened to be American Airlines Flight 11, could crash into the World Trade Center with a direct hit. A direct hit the core, this is the official story, hit the core of the building, hit the North Tower first, shot and shook a reverberation from the top to the ground, which eventually created all this fire through combustibles and then melted the steel thousands and thousands of degrees according to the official narrative and the 9/11 Commission and their report, which led to this perfect demolition. That makes sense. It makes sense that NORAD, even though they can scramble jets, fighter pilots at sonic boom at the speed of sound, that if they only had a few minutes from the first time they were notified to the first commercial plane that hit the North Tower, it makes sense they wouldn't respond then. But how is it possible that a second plane which crashed at approximately 9:03 a.m., Flight 175, crashes into the South Tower, but it isn't shot down? Again, we had American Airlines flight, the first airplane to crash into the North Tower at 8:46, and the second flight at 9:03. That is a 17-minute delay between crashes. 17 minutes. That means that no jets were scrambled, there was no communication, there was no military response, and again, not a single fighter jet in the air. And we could have seen this because, of course, the mainstream media was already there. The mainstream media, coincidentally, had a faster response than our defense systems here in the United States. Now, according to the official report, the official narrative, at approximately 10:37 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, these are all Eastern Standard Times, Boston Center Control notifies NEADS, a branch of NORAD that covers the Northeastern Division, of the hijacking of Flight 11. The first notification, according to them, received by NORAD that Flight 11 had been hijacked. This is 9 minutes from the first impact of Flight 11, American Airlines, that impacted the North Tower with a direct hit. Again, it makes sense if NORAD couldn't respond to this, but it's a 22-minute delay from the second plane. 26 minutes. Think about this. That's a long time. 26 minutes, and we still don't have an aircraft in the air. We still don't have jets scrambled. There's no visual coming from the hundreds of cameras on the World Trade Center watching this live, and the millions of Americans and people tuning in around the world. There's not a single jet in the sky. Unbelievable. Still unanswered. At 8:19 a.m., Betty Ong, a flight attendant on Flight 11, alerts American Airlines via an airphone.
Listening in the back, the cockpit's not answering. Somebody's stabbed in business class, and I think there's mates that we can't breathe. I don't know. I think we're getting hijacked. Which flight are you on? Flight 12. And what seat are you in?
So that's 44 minutes on top of the 26 minutes was their first communication that they allegedly had, that NORAD had, but 44 minutes from the time Betty Ong first communicated to ground control. A 44-minute delay. And again, no planes visible in the sky. Question number 3. Why did the South Tower collapse first when it was the second tower to be hit? Now keep in mind, the North Tower, which was hit first by Flight 11, American Airlines, was a direct hit. It went straight into the core. The South Tower, and we all saw this visually, and it's also part of the official report, the narrative that they pitched to us, the second plane that hit the South Tower was not a direct hit. Its wing clipped the building, and parts of its engine and other plane parts flew into the street. So it wasn't a direct hit. So how is it that the South Tower collapses first when it was the second building to be hit and it wasn't a direct hit, as was the North Tower? At approximately 9:58 a.m., the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses, 56 minutes after the impact of Flight 175. At approximately 10:28 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. Question number 4. Why do we have eyewitness accounts of bombs going off before the first plane even hit? Why are there eyewitness accounts on the ground? We'll roll some of this footage for you, that it appeared and sounded as if bombs, people heard this from the subway, people heard this from the streets. Why did they hear bombs going off? Again, eyewitness accounts, not my account, eyewitness accounts. Why did they hear bombs going off in the World Trade Center before the first plane even hit?
The ladies that are with me were in the World Trade Center in the first building and escaped through the lobby, where they report they believe there was a bomb in the lobby.
And even the turnstile was burnt and was sticking up, and they just told us to run.
And as we were coming out, we passed the lobby. There was no lobby. So I believe the bomb hit the lobby first, and a couple of seconds in the first plane hit.
Question number 5. How did journalists like CBS News correspondent Jim Stewart have the foresight to link Osama bin Laden as a probable suspect only moments after the attack? How is it that the mainstream media already had a narrative built into their commentary just moments after the attack, without any investigation and any homework? You know, most people thought what they were seeing on TV at first was some kind of accident and not even an act of terror. Yet people like journalist, CBS News correspondent Jim Stewart, immediately, out of Washington, D.C., by the way, immediately linked the attack to Osama bin Laden. Question number 6. Why was President Bush reading a book to children during the attack? Isn't that also convenient that George W. Bush would be reading a book? I think it was the book The Pet Goat, although people often incorrectly get it wrong and say My Pet Goat. Why was the president reading a book to school children? Isn't that a convenient narrative, with the cameras rolling, you know, showing him as this good guy? He's just at a local school reading a book. Why was that positioned that way? Isn't that a little strange? Isn't it a little convenient? Doesn't it build that narrative that Bush is for the children. I mean, what a great guy. While America is being hit right between the balls, Bush is reading a book to the school children. And you remember they're whispering in his ears, and he still just keeps reading the book. He doesn't even react as up to 3,000 people die and buildings are collapsing before Americans' very eyes. Again, the mainstream media was there, folks, but not Bush. Not a single fighter jet in the sky that can scramble at sonic boom, the speed of sound, but he was conveniently reading a book to school children. Isn't that a convenient narrative? Don't we see Obama use this all the time? You know, taking away our guns for the school children, for the children, because children are dying, and why he passes all this legislation post-Sandy Hook, using a tragedy to push his own agenda and using a convenient narrative. Smokescreen, the children. Question number 7. Why are there no visible plane fragments at the Pentagon? Many conspiracy theorists, as the mainstream media likes to call them, but really just critical thinkers, have asked and posed the question, is it possible that instead of a plane hitting the Pentagon, that a missile hit it? Is it possible that instead of a plane hitting the Pentagon, which conveniently there wasn't a whole lot of people, I think part of the Pentagon, I believe it was the West Side, correct me if I'm wrong, but there weren't even a lot of people in the Pentagon. It was, mysteriously and conveniently under construction at that time. Is it possible that instead of a plane, that it was a bomb? Is it possible instead of a plane hitting the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., that it was a missile and or a bomb? Question number 8. What happened to Flight 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania? Isn't that an interesting play on words? Shanksville. You know, the plane that allegedly Americans, once they became aware using their cell phones, even though I don't know how they work, how a cell phone works at that kind of altitude, but managed to call their friends and family and use their first and second names, which seems staged in and of itself. What happened to that plane? Why wasn't it shot out of the sky? Or was it? Is the truth really a convenient narrative that Americans overtook the plane in this heroic act and drove the plane into the ground because they knew the terrorists were going to fly it into another building in, let's say, Washington, D.C.? Or is it possible that the government, which again can't be trusted, our founding fathers knew this, and most of you also know this, and if your friends and family don't know this, share this video to them right now, tweet it or Facebook it or share it on YouTube or send it via email. Is it possible that that's a lie? Is it possible that instead of this heroic act that all Americans want to get behind and feel good about, again, it makes me feel a lot better about the event, is it possible that they just shot the plane down out of the sky? Question 9. Why was there an extraordinary amount of put options placed on United Airlines and American Airlines stocks days before the attack? Is that not a conspiracy? Again, an extraordinary amount of put options, meaning investors knew ahead of time and were selling these specific stocks short before the attack that made up September 11th, 2001. Was there not a financial interest in the destruction of America in advance knowledge of coming events? Question number 10, and a very important one. Why did we invade Iraq and Afghanistan post-September 11th? Why? According to the official narrative, number 1, there were no WMDs. That was a bold-faced lie, now admitted to us by Bush and our government. Why would we invade 2 countries that had nothing to do with the attack in the first place? In fact, according to their official reports and their official narrative, it was mostly Saudi Arabian terrorists on board these flights. Yet America did not invade Saudi Arabia. Instead, we invaded Iraq and Afghanistan. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that convenient? Doesn't that provide motive for an event, an attack, maybe staged, maybe a conspiracy, maybe not, for an event like September 11th to take place, to usher in things like the Patriot Act under the guise of fear and a smokescreen, and then launch a war that was already on the table and on the books and the agenda of the Washington elite to push that war and enter that war and escalate that war and to continue to destabilize this part of the world, something we're seeing to this very day. Question number 11. Why hasn't there been an independent investigation of 9/11? A truly independent investigation. Again, I just listed 10 questions before the last question of these 11 questions of things that have been left unanswered, that Americans, really just common sense questions, have not answered. The government has not answered to. You know, how come they don't reopen this investigation if there's a demand for it? What do they have to hide? Again, doesn't this play into a very convenient narrative in the Middle East? In conclusion, obviously September 11th is a conspiracy. Obviously, there are critical questions today that are still left unanswered. Either the federal government is in on it, they had crafted this event, this terrorist attack, they're somehow nefariously involved, or they're just incredibly stupid. They're incredibly incompetent, and we're caught with their pants down. And we have a total lack of appropriate defense systems here in the United States of America. Either option really isn't a good one. Either your federal government is responsible for the deaths of up to 3,000 Americans and also terrorists that allegedly drove the planes into the World Trade Center and at the Pentagon and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, or they're just incredibly dumb and incompetent and stupid and need to be replaced immediately. Again, please investigate the truth about 9/11 for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Extrapolate upon this video. Put your questions, comments, findings, suggestions in the comment box below and get it out everywhere. I'm Christopher Green. Make this video viral, hard hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.